So this talk is about stress, which is a very important subject in our culture. What I do a lot of in Britain is giving courses in meditation for helping with stress in non-Buddhist circles. In Britain now, meditation has become very popular, and it is all through all aspects of society, actually. All the schools now have to study a bit about Buddhism. It's on the national curriculum. And so even in the classroom, people are getting interested in meditation. And many companies are hiring meditation instructors, and prisons, hospitals, all kinds of places. So quite a lot of my time is spent giving such courses. And I enjoy it very much because it gives me a chance to think about Buddhism in a context where you can't use any jargon or any kind of terminology. People are interested in meditation in a very very direct way. They want to talk about stress, how to deal with stress. So what I'm going to do now is present some of the techniques which I present in these different organizations. Basically, stress is a word that now has become very normal to use. Everyone talks about stress. Years ago, maybe 10, 20 years ago, stress was seen as something is wrong with you if you're stressed. It's when you've gone too far. But now, everyone's stressed all the time. The traditional image of somebody who's stressed is the business person with high blood pressure, high cholesterol, traveling on aeroplanes all the time, going from meeting to meeting. But really, when we talk about stress, everybody suffers from stress, whether one is working in a high-pressured job or whether one is working, looking after children at home, whether one is meditating in a retreat. Whatever one is doing, stress is a big deal. Stress is where we feel pressure. Pressure is always a problem. And we want to relax. Need to learn how to relax. The problem is that we don't know how to relax. For a start, we think it's all physical, and so we try to relax physically, and we don't know what to do about our mind. When we've worked all day, we feel exhausted, and in most cases we haven't actually moved much during the day. For some people, the extent of their movement during the day is moving from their desk to the coffee machine. And in many cases, that is done through staying on the chair, which has wheels, and moving across the room on it. So not much physical activity. But by the evening, the feeling is like one has been running some kind of marathon race. And so we get home with this feeling of total exhaustion, and we think we are stressed physically. We think it's physical, so we do all kinds of physical things to overcome the stress. We do relaxation, yoga, or we lie in a bath, or whatever. We do all kinds of things to calm the body down, but the body doesn't need calming down. It hasn't done anything all day. It's the mind. The mind is the root of our experience, and the body reflects that. It is in our mind that the stress is, so we need to learn how to deal with it in our mind. And the first thing to do, if you want to learn to deal with stress, is to take responsibility for it. What that means is to stop blaming other people or the situation. We always say, I'm stressed because of the work I'm doing. I'm stressed because of my job, or because of my family, or because of my kids. I'm stressed because of my boss he or she is so demanding. He or she is putting so much pressure on me. So what we do is we constantly blame the outside situation for our stress. When we have that kind of mentality, it's quite dangerous because we turn ourselves into a victim of the situation. Nothing we can do about it. And we have to spend our whole life running from situation to situation, trying to find one that doesn't make us feel stressed. But what actually happens is we leave the job for another job, or we leave the partner for another relationship, or whatever, or we move from one city to the other, or one country to the other, and we'll find the same thing comes up. Because the stress is not external, it is internal. It's in us, it's in terms of our attitude. If it was all external, meaning that if it's because of the job or the colleague or the situation, then it would mean that every single person who was in that situation would have to have exactly, down to the last minute detail, identical reactions. Wouldn't they? If it's the situation, then everyone would have the same reaction. And we would have the same reaction all the time within that situation. But of course it's not true. Some people find the situation quite easy, some people find it difficult. And we ourselves will go to the same workplace one day to the next and have totally different feelings about it. So the stress is to do with our attitude, it's to do with our mind. It is to do with how much tension we have in our mind. Of course it's triggered by the situation, but the experience of it is in our mind. And we have to learn to take responsibility for that, otherwise how on earth are we going to get over it? We have to see that it's within us. So what do we need to do? We need to learn how to relax. And that's actually something that needs to be learned or developed as a skill. It needs to become a faculty of our mind, of our personality. Everybody is looking for relaxation. That is a big motivation in life, wanting to relax. So much of what we do is in the name of relaxation. In fact, pretty much everything we do when we get home from work, we put the TV on, we dim the lights, we play nice music, we cook a nice meal, we go to the movies, we phone up our friends. An endless list of things that we do in order to relax. The problem is that these things are limited. They are limited because we are achieving a state of relaxation through depending on external conditions. We can relax when the nice music is playing, we're in the bath, the kids have been put to bed, we've got some space, whatever. We have all of these props. The limitation there is that when we are in difficult situations, we don't know what to do. So, for example, if we're in a difficult crisis situation during our day, at work, for example, we have no hope because we don't have all of our props. We can't suddenly produce the props. In the middle of the busy meeting, we suddenly say, right, I'm just got to get the bathtub out and nice music. We don't know how to relax because we've only been able to do it through depending on the right conditions. So we don't actually know how to do it for ourselves from within. We need to learn how to relax. We need to actually make it a skill or a habit. So what we should do is we should make a deal with ourselves that we're going to develop this skill. And we never have to feel that our life is too busy or we have too many problems to develop that skill. In fact, the more the better, because we can learn to relax within those difficulties. So in order to learn to relax, what we have to do is do it regularly, so it becomes a habit, and not to try and do it for too long. The problem is that when people try to relax, they try and force themselves to relax for too long, and then it becomes, the relaxation itself becomes a problem. So, regularly throughout the day, relax for a few moments, momentarily. But then if you try and prolong that for too long, you start to feel jumpy and agitated, and then you start to relate to the relaxation as a kind of imprisonment. And then in the long run, every time we try to relax, we feel like running away. So don't get into that trap. Instead, do it in short bursts, short periods repeated often. so that we are aligning ourselves to the relaxed state in a positive way, not in an oppressive way. So regularly throughout the day, we can learn how to relax by just bringing our mind into the present moment. So our mind is always floating around between the past, the future, or in the present we're interfering in the present and judging it and questioning it. So we need to just be aware of the present in a very direct way. So you can use all kinds of focuses. You can be aware of your body. That's an easy one. Just be aware of your body and relax the tension in your body at the same time. Bring your mind to where your body is. And just be there without judgment and notice the tension. There are a few places in the body where everybody holds tension. You might not fit into these categories. You might find there's somewhere else, but these are common categories. One is the stomach. A lot of people hold tension in the stomach. We all know that feeling of the stomach is knotted or very constricted, or there's butterflies in the stomach. Most people hold a lot of tension in the stomach, especially because many people hold their stomachs in order to look thin. So there's always a little bit of tension there through holding the body in a certain way. And that's, in the long run, is going to cause more tension. So another area is the shoulders, especially if you have any kind of desk job or you work with computers. You will find that there's a whole kind of range of tension down the neck and shoulders. Another area is the jaw and the face in general. So the face holds tension in the jaw and also the forehead. So just to be aware, maybe locate the place where the tension is and consciously relax it for a few moments while you bring your mind to the body. That's the technique. Bring the mind to where the body is and consciously relax the tension, just for a few moments, regularly throughout the day, so that it doesn't become a big deal. Because the problem with all kinds of relaxation, meditation, etc., is the reason we don't want to do it is because it becomes too big a deal. And we think, I've got so much else going on in my life, I can't bear to have something else to think about. So this meditation or relaxation is another thing. I haven't got space for it. There's too much happening. So the trick is to slip some relaxation in before you've had time to notice that you've done it. Just slip it in quickly before you've noticed. That's the trick. It's called skillful means. It's not cheating. It's skillful methods, which means to relax in a way that you don't have the chance to turn it into something negative. So do it in manageable portions throughout the day. And you don't have to stop doing what you're doing. You don't have to think, I'm too busy, I haven't got time to relax. Carry on doing what you're doing, but relax within it. So as you're walking up the stairs, or as you're walking along the corridor from one meeting to the other, or as you're driving the car or whatever, just relax. Or as you're in the meeting. Or whenever you hear the telephone ring, that's another good one. Whenever the telephone rings, we automatically tense up. And we always grab the phone very quickly, as if people are only going to do half a ring and then run away. It's almost like we have to run for the phone and kind of rugby tackle it and grab it before it stops. But most human beings ring a few times. So we can afford to let it ring, and you can actually make a deal with yourself. You can think, right, whenever I hear the phone ring, I'm going to imagine that that is the voice of telling me to relax. You can decide that the phone ringing is going to be a trigger. You can create triggers, symbols, to help yourself. Anything can be a trigger for anything if you decide it's going to be. So you make a decision that the phone ringing is a sound telling you to relax. Just sit there, bring your mind to the present, and then pick the phone up in a nice way and say hello nicely. So actually to use these things in a productive way. Or if you have a clock that chimes, you can say the chiming of the clock. One method I've used in a prison is that every time they hear the keys of the guards, jangling keys, they should use that as a trigger. You can use anything, even something that normally makes you feel very oppressed, like, for example, if you're in prison and you hear the keys. You can change that by deciding that the sound of the keys is a voice telling me to relax. You can make any kind of decision you want because the mind can do anything. You can decide that X means Y or A means B. You can make those decisions. It's just about training, making a deal with yourself. So the key is to learn how to relax in daily life so that that becomes a habit, a faculty, becomes part of our personality, becomes something more natural. Because everything we do is so much based on instinct. When we're in a difficult situation, we instinctively tense up. So we need to work to make an instinctive relaxation faculty in our mind. That needs to be something instinctive. So through regular training, we can develop that slowly. So then a more productive thing to do is, once one has got into that kind of practice, learning to relax, is to start trying to learn to relax in difficult situations. Actually to relax against the odds, because that's when it really starts to be important. It's quite easy to relax when you're walking on the beach with a beautiful sunset and all those kind of nice situations, but to learn to relax in difficult situations is very important. So the key there, again, the skillful method there, is to learn to relax in easy, difficult situations, first of all. So situations that are a little bit difficult, but not too difficult. And the main one to start with is whenever you're waiting for something. Every day of our life we are involved in waiting. We're waiting in a queue, we're waiting for our lunch, we're stuck in traffic, we're in a traffic jam, we're waiting for the elevator, we're waiting for a bus, waiting for a train, waiting for a taxi, waiting for a phone call. It's something that we all experience every day, waiting. And that is a situation where we automatically get tense almost every time, for absolutely no benefit. There's no benefit. If I'm stuck in traffic and I get tense, it doesn't make the traffic move faster. So actually it's a pointless reaction. It is an unplanned reaction. We don't sit there and decide. We don't have a little conversation with ourselves. Now, how shall I respond here? I wonder if I should try a bit of tension. Okay, let me try that and see what happens. We don't have that kind of conversation with ourselves. It just automatically arises. It's automatic gut reaction of tension and stress. And that is the problem in life, is that that is automatic. So we need to start working against that current, but in an easy way. So what you can do is, when you're waiting in a queue or waiting in traffic, you can make a deal that those times are training times, training in relaxation. So every time it happens, when you feel the tension arise, meet the experience of tension with a feeling of relaxation. Just decide, okay, there's nothing I can do, so I may as well just give up. I can't make the queue go faster, I can't make the traffic move quicker, so I may as well just give up. There's no hope. May as well give up. And to make it even more positive, you can think, well, this is a great opportunity for training, so I may as well relax. So what you do is, as you feel the tension building up, meet it with relaxation. Just relax, and then of course the tension will come back and you relax again. You do it in short doses, in a manageable way. If we can do that, then we're achieving many things at the same time. For one thing, we're learning how to relax against the odds. Learning how to relax in a situation where normally we get tense without even wanting to or planning it. So then surely that means that we can develop that faculty of relaxation against the odds, and it could become part of our life, and maybe even come into focus at the really difficult moments in life, if it becomes a habit. So that's one thing we're learning, is how to relax against the odds. Another thing, which is even more profound, is we are learning how to make the best of a difficult situation. Queues and traffic jams, waiting, etc., these are situations that we automatically label as negative. But since there's nothing we can do about them, we may as well make the best of them. So we can decide, right, this is great. I'm in a traffic jam. I've got some time to do some practice. So you actually can feel that it's a blessing. You can be grateful for that opportunity. And if you develop that kind of mentality and then learn to transpose that into other situations in life, then that is really the deepest cure for stress, is actually to learn to appreciate everything. Because if we appreciate everything, we can't be stressed, can we? If we appreciate when the boss is shouting at us, if we appreciate when our husband or wife is giving us a hard time, if we can learn to feel that it's a wonderful opportunity for training. So we need these opportunities. It's a little bit like doing exercise. If you go to the gym and you lie on one of those bench presses where you have to pull the bar down repeatedly, if there's no weights at the other end of the machine, there's no point, is there? The bar just kind of goes up and down. You have to pile some weights on the other side to give yourself resistance so that you can do the exercise. So all the obstacles of life are those weights. We need them in order to do the exercise. So we need those obstacles in order to develop the skills. So to look at them in a positive way is the key, to actually see them as an opportunity. And that's really the deepest way to understand stress. In Britain right now, there are so many courses on stress. They call them stress management. And generally, those courses offer quick techniques for learning how to get rid of the symptoms of stress, which is fine, but it's not actually that effective. The most effective thing is to learn to feel appreciation, so that actually there is no ground for the stress. So this is an attitude that we can't just switch on. We can decide that sounds great, let's try it, but it's not just going to happen. We have to actually train in that way, or that style, so that slowly and patiently we keep at it, so that it naturally works its way into our whole personality. Buddhism does not offer quick fix techniques. A lot of people are looking for a quick technique, so they go on these very exciting looking weekend courses with promises of instant results, etc. But if something is quick to learn, it is usually quick to undo. If you achieve something that quickly, it's usually quick to be destroyed. It's better to achieve it slowly, so that it really becomes part of one's nature. And so that is what Buddhist training is all about. It's about constant, slow, patient training. So the whole idea is that we're learning how to relax, so that then that could become a more instinctive part of our life. Normally, when we're in a stressful situation, we automatically get tense. What we need to do is learn to associate stress with a relaxed response. Now that is totally the opposite of our normal association. Normally, we associate stressful situation, tense reaction. What we're doing is actually turning that around, learning to associate a difficult, stressful situation with a relaxed response. We have to put those two things together, fuse them together through regular training, so that eventually we will be able to manage our lives more easily. So it's all down to the attitude and to the training. Any questions so far? Okay, so that's to talk about relaxation in daily life, which is one part of the process of transforming stress. It's also very important to meditate. Meditation is essential, because the technique I've described so far is going to be useful, but it's not going to work that well unless we have a very diligent meditation practice, which we do every day. And again, that doesn't have to be something stressful. You know, very often we stress about our meditation. That itself becomes a kind of problem for us. It doesn't have to be. We can work that into our life by just deciding we're going to do 15 or 20 minutes and then build it up when it becomes more comfortable. But it's very important to get instruction in how to meditate, how to sit properly, then different techniques. There's various different techniques. The most common technique for meditation is watching the breathing. But when I give courses to business people or people in different organizations on stress, I don't use that technique because Rinpoche said that it would be better to use a more spacious technique, because the whole working day is usually based around intense focus and concentration. So then you give somebody a meditation technique that does the same thing, it becomes too much. It's maybe better to develop a meditation technique that is more spacious if one is working in this way for the management of stress or the transformation of stress. So the best technique is called meditating on the sky. So what you do is you go out, if you've got a window, great, otherwise you go outside in your break, your coffee break or whatever. Now most people in their break, they go and they down 3 or 4 cups of coffee, smoke as many cigarettes as possible, and all of that is in the name of relaxation, but those are precisely substances which make you more stressed. Nicotine, caffeine, all of these things increase stress. So why are we doing it? Why not do some meditation instead? It's much more useful to learn how to meditate in one's breaks at work. I know what I'm talking about because I used to smoke before I was a monk, and I know how it would bring a kind of feeling of relaxation, but in the long run build up the odds higher so that you have more tension. It's the same with coffee. Coffee creates a feeling that you can get through your day more, but actually the coffee itself robs you of energy. So it's much more useful to learn how to meditate in one's tea breaks at work, and also to meditate every day at home. And so the technique is that you look at the sky, you look into the sky, and you feel that you're looking very, very far into space, and let all thoughts and emotions come and go like clouds in the sky. We don't need to try and stop them. We don't need to indulge them. It's almost like in the sky itself there are a lot of clouds, and we can choose to either focus on the clouds or the sky. We have the choice whether to focus on the clouds or the sky. We have to focus on the sky. Now, of course, it's a meditation practice, so it's not going to work instantly. We will find that we get distracted by the thoughts and emotions, but then just release that distraction and go back to the sky. So that there's a sense of openness, spaciousness, not a sense of rigid concentration on one object. At the end of this technique, often people feel a little bit spaced out. So what you should do at the end of the method is just bring your mind back to where your body is and feel the weight of your body in order to ground yourself at the end. It's also very important at the start of a meditation session to establish a strong motivation, a wish or intention that we wish to meditate and find freedom and benefit others. And at the end of the session, to develop a strong sense of completion, which means to sit and think, now we've meditated and we've done our best and the job is done and we're dedicating it to everybody. So that is an important way of framing the session at the beginning and the end. But the session itself is simply to look at the sky, and sometimes if you have a very strong problem going on, for example, depression or fear or anxiety, sometimes, from time to time, you can breathe out slowly and feel that you're breathing this out into the sky and that it's dissipating. You can try that sometimes. But not all the time, just when it's really difficult, something really difficult is happening. Otherwise, the general technique is just to look in the sky and let things pass, not get distracted by them. It's very important when we meditate not to try and stop ourselves from thinking. A lot of people meditate in a very aggressive way because they try and stop themselves from thinking, try to actually block the thoughts. A lot of people think that meditation is about not thinking. But actually, if you think about it, that in itself it doesn't make any sense. Because we sit there thinking that we're not supposed to think. So we're trying to think ourselves into a state of non-thought. Meditation is not about stopping the thinking. It's not about clearing the mind. It is not about emptying the mind. If we try and do that, we become very aggressive. Because then we sit there, and every time a thought arises, we think we've fallen off the meditation wagon. We've gone wrong. So then the thoughts become our enemies. And then we become more fearful. We actually become afraid of ourselves. We feel like we're running from these endless thoughts. And so meditation becomes very violent, because we have to sit there somehow shooting down the thoughts, patrolling our mind with a big gun, shooting them down. And that becomes very stressful. Meditation becomes stress then. Meditation is not about stopping the thoughts. It's about letting the thoughts be and having awareness. It's a little bit like traffic on the road. If you imagine that thoughts are cars on a road, on a busy road, and they're flying by, and you're standing at the side of the road, you can let the cars go by. If you tried to stop the traffic midstream, it would all pile up and cause a big accident. You could also imagine that thoughts are like taxis, and that you have the option whether to flag one down. So you know with taxi, I don't know if you flag taxis down here or if you have to call them or whatever, but in London, every street is filled with taxis, and if you put your hand out, they stop. So the solution is, when we do meditation, normally what happens with meditation is we get into each taxi, go for a long drive, and then we don't actually know where we are. And we think, where was I? So in meditation, what we need to do is just let the taxis go by. You don't have to flag them down. So the whole point of meditation is to leave the mind alone. Leave the mind alone. Don't interfere with it. Because our stress and our problems, they're all thoughts. Everything is thought. And if we make a big deal out of our thoughts, it becomes a big deal. It is like we're so much like somebody who is standing in a boxing ring, and the sun is illuminating us to the extent that we see a shadow, and we box with our own shadow. So that's what we do with our mind. We solidify our thoughts and feelings so much that we have to fight with them all the time. So we're fighting with ourselves constantly, battling with the stress. What we have to do is learn not to make such a big deal out of it. Learn just to let it be. When we get involved with it, we solidify it. So the meditation process, especially this practice of looking at the sky, is designed to help us to just leave things alone and focus on the spaciousness of mind rather than the stress of the mind. Focus on the spaciousness. Because if mind is spacious like the sky, it means it doesn't have to worry about whatever's going on in it. Just like the sky is big enough to accommodate its clouds, and the ocean is big enough to accommodate its own waves, the mind is big enough to accommodate its own thoughts. Those are the examples used in the texts on meditation. The sky, the ocean, the mind. So it's a very good way of looking at the whole thing. Any questions?
You say one has to look at the sky the whole time, or does it imagine it?
Look at the sky. Physically look at it.
During the whole meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes?
You said that start being exposed, you imagine that you're breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why is it
Because then it could become quite obsessive. You just sit there for the whole practice. The breathing out of the problem itself becomes a creation of a new one. Because you set up a habit of needing to breathe out the suffering. So then there'll be more suffering to breathe out. So you only do it, it's a bit like taking aspirins. You don't want to take aspirins every day, but you take them sometimes when you have a really bad headache. you take them every day, you'll need to take more aspirins because you'll become hooked on them. Anything else? 15 minutes, 20 minutes. It's useful to try this technique, and when you do meditation, it's important to have a teacher. So it's important to try this technique for a few months and then maybe speak to somebody like Rob or somebody here who's qualified to give meditation advice, and work together with a teacher in that way. That's very important. Yeah?
Sometimes when people do meditations and they look for a long time into the sky, they can get quite freaked out because it's so open.
Yeah. So two things to say about that. One is don't stop yourself blinking. A lot of people look into the sky in a very staring, kind of intensive manner, and the eyes are streaming. It's not a good idea. Just normally, just blink normally, looking at the sky. If it becomes overwhelming, detach from that and just bring your mind to your body. Look down and see the earthiness and weightiness of your own body and feel the weight of it. And just relax into that groundedness and then go back to the practice. So do that whenever you need to. Anything else? That's a good point. That does happen, a feeling of ungroundedness. So just ground yourself if that happens. Yeah, well, all of this comes from Rinpoche. Everything I've said today is from Rinpoche, so whether he's teaching the therapy or Buddhism, it's all his stuff. Yes?
Are there some people for whom the concentration kind of meditation might be better?
Yeah?
What kind of people?
Depends on the kind of mind we have.
So what kind of mind have you?
You'd have to go to a teacher and work it out with them. I'm not a teacher, so I have no idea. That's why teachers are important, to help the student to see what kind of mind they have, what kind of practice they would need. Anything else? Okay, so I've talked a bit about meditation. I haven't really given precise meditation instructions. We need more time to go through that, to talk about sitting, talk about different things. But I'm just giving you a flavor of different practices that are useful for helping with stress. Another very important thing is to learn compassion. So much of our stress is related to other people, in that we can't seem to have compassion and understanding and patience, and we turn other people into causes of our stress. What we again have to remember is that it's not the other person, it's us. Our irritation and anger is like a spring inside. And every time the lid is touched, it bursts open and the spring comes up. So we have to learn to deal with the spring itself. We have to learn to deal with this. There's one Theravada teacher. She was a famous nun called Ayya Khema. She gave a beautiful talk in which she described anger as being like a jack-in-the-box with a lid. And instead of looking at what it is that touches the lid, we have to look at the thing inside the lid. So we have to look at our own anger, our own irritation, our own frustration. What we need to do very often is learn how to change places with the other person. If somebody is winding us up in some way, or hurting us in some way, or causing difficulty, we only look at it from our point of view, don't we? So we get very narrow-minded. We're looking down a tunnel. We have to mentally change places with the other person and look at it from their point of view. How is this situation for them? What are they? Obviously, we can only imagine, but even through imagining, it could help us to see the situation from more points of view. Because logically speaking, a situation should never be seen only from one point of view. It should be seen from all points of view. So we have to do that. We have to learn to see things from other people's position. So less ego, more understanding. We have to learn to train in compassion, train in how to coordinate properly with each other, how to work together, how to make people feel valued. If you're working in a structured organization, the way to make everything work is if everybody, from the boss down to the person who does the cleaning every day, feels part of the whole thing and feels valued, rather than there being a kind of power structure all the time. So compassion is a very important part of that. Within ourselves, we have to feel that we are on a path towards compassion. We have to feel that we are of use to others. And that is possible through meditating regularly and feeling that we are training our minds for the benefit of others. Having that confidence so that our life turns from being something meaningless and filled with struggle to something precious. Precious human life. The definition of precious human life is entirely based on compassion, whether we are developing compassion or not. Otherwise our life is worthless. If we're only looking after our own needs, our life is pretty worthless, because those needs aren't satisfied anyway. They just keep changing. And we're not benefiting others. So we have to develop a compassionate motivation if we want to find freedom within ourselves. Any questions? Yeah?
What we're talking about now seems to depend a lot on coming from ourselves and working a lot with ourselves. But there would also be a need sometimes to talk to that other person. Someone there's a conflict arising or tension arising.
Possibly.
I know sometimes that can get worse because
Yeah.
both are accusing each other.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need to tell someone.
Sometimes, but then we have to realize that that kind of activity is symptomatic. And you could fix that particular situation, but it will come up again somewhere else. So it's okay and sometimes necessary, but if we really want to solve the problem within ourselves, we have to do what Rinpoche once described it as being like a smooth wall. He said there are two types of wall. Imagine that there's a wall that's covered in glue, and whatever you throw at that wall will stick. And imagine a wall that is totally smooth, so whatever you throw on it just slides down. So if we become like a smooth wall, which means less clinging in the mind, less glue in the mind, then these situations just won't arise. Conflict only arises when there is clinging. It's impossible otherwise. I've seen people try to engage Rinpoche in conflict, and it's absolutely impossible because the thing just slides off the wall. And with his kind of work and the kind of places he goes to, you would think there'd be more conflict, but it's impossible with him. Anything else? Yeah?
In that, how do you still set boundaries? I mean, if you disconnect your own self, then how do you set boundaries with other people, particularly like me?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, like, in a conflict situation, how do you still, do you need boundaries or not? You're a smooth wall.
If we were a smooth wall, the conflict wouldn't arise in the first place. Until then, we need to work relatively with how we are. So we do need to be mindful. Setting boundaries or having boundaries is actually more to do with being mindful than anything else. If we are mindful, then things won't slip so much.
Mindful of what?
Mindfulness means there are two main aspects to mindfulness. One is to be centered and in the present, aware of what is going on. Another aspect is to have the presence of mind to remember what it is one is supposed to be doing, so to remember the teachings of Dharma. So one's reactions will be more positive if one has mindfulness. Now actually mindfulness is the key to everything, because if you want to talk about compassion, forgiveness, or welcoming difficult situations or whatever, all of that's only possible if we have mindfulness. Because we can sit in a nice, comfortable shrine room like this and discuss these things and make plans that we'll be more compassionate and more accepting, etc. But when it comes to the difficult situations, all of that flies out of the window. So mindfulness is the only way that we will know where we are and what to do. That's the definition of mindfulness, knowing where you are and what to do.
And if we really would be skillful means to still not by the situation we're facing.
If we know where we are, we know what to do.
That's most appropriate for that situation.
That's the definition of mindfulness. But that's the skill that we have to develop gradually in meditation. The problem with Westerners is when we look at the whole meditation process, we get very frustrated that we're not there already. We want to run before we can crawl. And so we get very frustrated about the whole thing. We should just be patient. I remember Siddha Rinpoche said, if you can improve 1% in each life, then in 100 lives, I mean, when he said that, I felt like saying, yes, but 1% of what? But that's the doubting mind, isn't it, that wants to say that. So the idea is to look at a very long term and think we're just doing our best. We'll keep doing our best. And Lama Yeshe once described the meditation process as being like trying to scale a glass wall. Or a glass cliff face. You keep kind of trying to climb up it and we fall down, and he said that your bones are broken and you just have to get up and carry on. So what he means by that is that we have to keep reapplying ourselves rather than thinking my spiritual path is like a very precious glass ornament and if it's smashed it's finished. We have to think we're going to keep falling down and keep getting into stress and difficulties, but we have to get up again. Just keep getting up again. That's the kind of mentality. It's actually not anything to do with Buddhism particularly. It's a particular kind of mentality. Most of our lamas come from eastern Tibet, from Kham. Rinpoche, Lama Yeshe, most of our Kagyu lamas come from Kham. And the Khampa mentality is just like that. They're very brave people, the Khampas. If they're going to do something, they do it really well. So it's always said that if a Khampa is going to become a criminal, they will become a major criminal. And if they're going to become a practitioner, they will become like Milarepa. So it's that very courageous, doing everything fully and never giving up, that kind of mentality. They call it having a bone in the heart. And so it's important to try and develop a little bit of that mentality when we're on the Dharma path, because we tend to be quite cowardly in our spiritual practice. If we can't seem to achieve anything, so we just give up. It's too difficult, so we'll just give up. But Shantideva says in his text, The Bodhisattva's Way of Life, he says, if you look at how much struggle people go through trying to achieve their worldly aims or chasing their own desires, if they put half of that energy into the Dharma, imagine what it would be like. So what he's saying is that we already go through struggle trying to make ourselves happy, so we do it anyway, so we may as well rechannel that into the practice. When it comes to trying to get our own way, we're willing to go through anything, torn and bruised and bleeding, we'll just keep going. But when it comes to practice, the smallest ache in our knees and we give up. It's true, isn't it? Think of how much we're willing to go through when we're chasing some kind of dream or some kind of fantasy or chasing material things in the name of enjoyment. In the name of enjoyment, look what we put our body through.
Is it worth it? Am I making a safe investment?
By doing Dharma practice. But I think you should just see it very simply and in terms of psychology. What are we doing when we practice the Dharma? We're learning how to pacify our mind. So surely that is the most worthwhile thing to do in life, because our mind is the source of all of our experiences. It must be worth it because it's to do with the mind. Is there anything higher than that? No. So we have to tell ourselves that repeatedly. That is why it's impossible to practice Dharma unless we regularly analyze the Four Ordinary Foundations, because they're all about learning how to see the Dharma as the best thing in life and keep one's connection with that. Anything else?
Just one thing, the mindfulness, I think you said there were 3 aspects.
2, I thought I said.
You said 2.
I hope I said 2.
I've only got 2. I thought
There's probably 3, but I thought of 2 at that time. The mindfulness usually is described as awareness, remembering. You can also talk about a quality of mindfulness which is to do with being careful about what we do, and that's based on knowing about karma. But traditionally, the way it's described is as awareness and remembering. Anything else? Yeah?
I want to ask mantra repetition. Is that, would that help with stress, or would it just make it worse?
No, it's fine. Om Mani Padme Hum especially is simple mantra that one can recite. Yeah?
Nice and easy.
Yeah? If you relate to that, do that. Yes?
What's the media course for businessmen?
Businessmen, businesswomen as well. Business persons. Apparently here in South Africa you can't say waiter and waitress. You have to say waitroid or something, was it? Is it true? Waitron. So you can't say businessman either, you have to say business being. Anyway, how long do I spend with them? Depends. Depends. I was in one company in London, I was going back every month and doing the 7 points of mind training. So we did a different point each month. In other companies, I will do maybe one day or a morning or go back regularly. It depends from company to company. It really is random. It depends what they want. And sometimes if they want to work on specific areas, like if they want to work on a specific problem, then I will work together with a management consultant. For example, if they have issues to do with customer relations or to do with organizational structure, then I will work together with a management consultant who's also a Buddhist. And she deals with all of that kind of stuff, and I present the meditation instruction, and we try and put the two together. So there's different ways of doing it. Anything else? Yeah?
Go back to the pain in the knee.
Yeah.
Better to sit through the pain and know that it will go away and think of the long-term benefits of sitting, or is it better to be comfortable? Because at the moment I find it quite difficult to, I'm just grasping onto the fact that my knees are...
The knees are an issue, and with Westerners it's a big issue because we were brought up sitting on chairs. Indians and Tibetans, they're more used to sitting on the floor. So for them, they can sit comfortably. So for us, it is a transition. But don't worry, think in the long term. When I first became a monk, I couldn't cross my legs properly. My knees were right up here. And then gradually, I found my knees became more supple, and I can sit for much longer, just through doing it again and again. And actually, the thing that revolutionized everything for me was finding out a bit about how the body works through speaking to an osteopath. And what I didn't realize is that the knee is a joint that only moves in one direction. And so when we sit, we're trying to move it in the wrong direction, aren't we? Aren't we? So the key is to look at the hip joint, which can move in many directions. If the hip joints are relaxed, then you see what happens is if our hip joints are not relaxed, then our thigh is pointing downwards and the knee is trying to slide round like that against its axis. The thigh needs to roll out so that the knee can be like that. So the key is to be looser here. So I started to do a lot of exercises for loosening up the hips, and you can learn those from yoga teachers. And it's good to do those exercises. And also when you sit, don't sit when your legs are stiff or cold. Warm them up first. And when you are sitting, have very warm underneath you and a blanket round your knees and round your hips and also the base of your spine. Always have a blanket there to keep yourself warm, because that will make the whole area more supple. So anyway, that's one thing, is to train so that sitting becomes easier. And the other thing is, how do we deal with the pain in the session? Well, there are two types of pain. One is a warning signal, and the other one is a dull ache. And you'll know if it's a warning signal. You'll know that you have to move or get up or something. The other one is a dull ache, just a kind of achy knees. And with that, the best thing to do is to relax into it. Just to relax. The more relaxed our mind is, the more relaxed our body will be. If you relax into pain, it can eventually stop being pain. What we have to remember is that whenever we have pain of any kind, it is not our body that feels the pain. The pain is not in our body. The pain is in our mind. We have to remember that. But it's not in our body, it's in our mind. Now, the proof, okay, the pain is not in our body, it's in our mind. The proof of that is you can do an experiment. It's a bit of a revolting experiment, so don't try it, just think about it. Which is that you stick a needle into your own leg, and then you stick the needle into the leg of a corpse. Do you get it? Okay, if I stick a needle into my leg, I feel pain. But actually it's my mind that feels the pain. If you stick the needle into the leg of the corpse, does it feel pain? No. So the body, no, what's happening is the corpse is a body without a mind. When the mind is taken out of the equation, the body doesn't feel anything. It's only because our mind is relating to our body that when something happens to our body, we feel the pain. You can prove this by thinking of how many times in your life have you had a headache or a pain, and then you've been distracted from it. Imagine you have a big pain in your leg, and suddenly the fire alarm goes, and you just get up and run. Or you have a headache and you have to go and give a lecture, or you have to do something, and you just have to stop feeling it and get on with what you're doing. It's possible, isn't it? We've all done that. It's quite a normal human thing. So that proves that it's to do with how our mind relates to the pain. If our mind, when we feel pain, what we're actually experiencing is a repeated experience of aversion, like a hammer in our mind. I don't like this. I don't like this. I wish it would go away. I hate this. So we have to actually change that to relaxation and acceptance. So it's very important to learn to relax in meditation. When the pain comes, relax deeply into it and just let it dissipate like that. Of course, there are certain kinds of pain that will be a kind of warning sign, and you do need to move a bit. It's important not to think that you have to sit like a rock in meditation. You can move. You move your legs, you change your legs, you warm them up. You don't have to be like a kind of statue. But it's a very good training in acceptance. We all want to learn to accept difficulties, so the best one to start with is to learn to accept the pain in the body in meditation. So one technique is you feel the pain in your legs and you want to move, so just go for a few minutes longer before moving and then move. You can move, but just wait a little bit, and so that you're learning to deal with that, and while you're relaxing you can think it's okay because I am about to be moving. I will be moving in 5 seconds time, so for these 5 seconds let me just experience that pain and be with it. That's a very good training. But also, as I said, there are pains which you have to be careful of. You will know if it's a kind of like a gunshot feeling in your leg, and you'll know that you need to do something about it. Yeah?
My question is, 2 years ago, Rob was saying that 90% of our pain is resistance of pain. The 10% is anti-pain. And we then take the pain as our object of meditation sometimes.
Yeah, you can use anything as your object of meditation. So instead of using the breath, you use the feeling of the pain in the leg, and you just directly watch that with the mind without judgment, so that you're aware of the pain, and when the mind wanders, bring it back to the pain. You can do that.
Let's say that must like Sundus have in the center. It's only about it. Take it for let's say 1 hour time. You can sometimes in the leg, sometimes in the head, sometimes in the spine.
That's quite heavy to do it for an hour. I've never tried that, but you could try to just be aware of the pain. But be careful. If it's a pain that you need to do something about, you should do something about it. Anything else?
Anything wrong with just meditating comfortably in the chair or the deep leg?
It's quite important to meditate in the right posture, because the way the body sits with the crossed legs and the hands like this and the straight back and the face and the tongue, all different things you are supposed to do, 7 points with the body. If you do all of that, it is said to harmonize the negative emotions. So the posture in itself helps us. There are many stories about monkeys and things copying people's postures and getting benefit. So the body posture is very important. So it is good to persevere. You can meditate in a chair if you have a problem. I was once doing a 6-month retreat, and I damaged my knee, and not through sitting, I have to hasten to add. I damaged my knee, and the osteopath told me I had to sit on a chair. And it was okay. I did my whole time sitting on a chair, and it was quite good for me because it made me look at it from a different point of view. A lot of times, for example, whenever I give courses to business people, I never tell them to sit cross-legged. Everything's on chairs. But I always tell them to sit up in the chair and not lean back. If you lean back, you get very drowsy. You have to sit up, and you have to put a little cushion underneath you to support the base of your spine. Anything else? No? So if you want a good book about meditation and dealing with stress and suffering, etc., the book called Living Dharma by Lama Yeshe, who's Akon Rinpoche's brother, is a very nice book that can be read by Buddhists and non-Buddhists alike. So that's a good book to read.